Gracious Heavenly Father, we just come to you today. We just thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed upon this tribe. Bless this meeting that we may make the right decisions for the betterment of our people. And just bless you for the meal and just be with the women of the Cherokee Nation who makes things possible for us, dear Lord. We just say this in all your praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Janice Taylor. Here. Joe Deere. Keith Austin. Here. Harley Buzzard. Joe Bird.
Ani.
Julia Coates. Sean Crittenden. Here. Mike Dobbins. Here. Kanan Duncan. Ani. Rex Jordan. Here. Daryl Legg. Here. Wes Snowfire. Ani. Dora Petskowski. Here. Mike Shambaugh. Here. Mary Bakershaw. E.O. Smith. Here. Victoria Vasquez. We have a quorum. Very good. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from February 25th.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Very good. Brings us down to reports. I see everybody up there. Derek, take it away.
Good afternoon, Counselor. Thank you. Just reporting on the February financials for C&E and for Cherokee Federal. We are continuing to see the right trends to return to our pre-COVID business. In fact, as you all may have seen as you drive by various venues, this past weekend was extremely strong. In the month of March, just to give you some sense of the trends, 5 of our 10 venues exceeded the March in 2019. So pre-COVID March compared to this March, we're exceeding performance. So I think that's something that we can all be encouraged by and excited about. The other 5, there was one venue that was below 2019. The others were right more or less consistent with 2019. So I think that's very encouraging, and we're continuing to look for opportunities to open different venues, including poker, off-track betting, some of our food service areas, as well as group sales, expanding that option as well. So I think we're all should be very encouraged by the direction of our gaming business. Real quickly on the gaming business, just as an update regarding Arkansas. As you all know, we had a major victory at the Arkansas Supreme Court. That case has been remanded back to the trial court in Pulaski County, and we look forward to litigating that in front of Judge Fox, who had previously been on that case as well. So I think we're sitting in good situation there. With respect to Cherokee Federal, continuing to see very strong performance, as you'll see in the February numbers, really on fire there. And I'm proud to announce that the marine logistics contract that we were very excited to win, we've actually now served our first Marine in Okinawa this week. And so we'll be coordinating with the Marines and providing logistics support for them. And we're very proud of that contract. Just a few other kind of housekeeping items. This Saturday, we're coordinating with the Cherokee Nation Health Services Department to provide vaccinations in the parking lot of the Hard Rock from noon to 6. And it's be a first come, first served basis. We appreciate Dr. Jones and Mr. Hale's coordination there and look forward to providing that support as well. Also on health care related items, we're continuing to make good progress and expecting our employee health clinic to open on Monday, April 19th. So just keep you all posted on that, because we're, again, very excited about that as well. And Madam Chair, I will pause there and be happy to address any questions that council may have.
Well, Chuck, it looks like everybody's, okay. Counselor Dobbins has something for you.
Certainly.
Chuck, when do you think we'll be in a position to project to restarting concerts?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is one of the very last reopening items that we're anticipating. The first thing that we'll do regarding music and entertainment are the stages above the bars and at track 5. We're looking to start those in some sort of fashion as early as next month. Again, trying to manage social distancing and that responsible hospitality policy that we have in place. The big sort of joint type concerts are several months away.
Yeah, I just noticed River Spirit announced an act coming in next month, so I didn't know whether we were closely following or you're projecting several months from now then.
I think we're looking closer to several months. I mean, they have, the Greeks have been very aggressive along the way and in terms of their masking policy, they really never had one. There was a little bit of talk about one, but they really never engaged that. Of course, didn't have the non-smoking either. So we and sometimes, we usually like to lead in everything we can. There's a couple of areas where we don't mind being second, and I would say when you're taking public health risks, we don't mind being second.
Thank you, Chuck.
You bet.
Counselor Shaw, did you have a question for Chuck Garrett?
My question is, what happens to the lost and found items in our hotels and casinos?
Those go through the same process that other surplus items go through. For example, when we change over our mattresses or various items that are beyond their useful life as a commercial product, desks, things like that, they go through the surplus equipment process, which ultimately is administered by the nation. And so it is, they go through a whole process and wind up being distributed by the nation.
Question, Madam Chair. Yes, Chuck,
Yes, sir.
do we do any advertising with the Sports Animal 97.1? That's a very popular station with Jim Trebor and I hear all of them, especially with March Madness. They promote a lot of the River Spirit and even the Grand Casino. I know that most of them are out of Oklahoma City, but but he still has his advertising in our area as well. Have we ever considered doing that?
Let me check on that with our marketing department. I don't believe we do anything with them currently, and there may be a reason that, historical reason, but let me check on that and follow up with you. I mean, I frequently listen to that as well, so I know that it's a great program and it reaches a lot of listeners. So let me do some homework on that for you and come back to you.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to say I was excited to read about that drive-through vaccination program that you're doing. I think that's kind of exciting, and I'm glad you're partnering up with us to do that, try and get as many people vaccinated as possible.
Well, thanks. We were excited to be invited and really appreciated the opportunity ourselves, so thanks.
Okay, is there anything, Counselor Smith has a question for you.
Yes, Chuck, on a lighter note, down at Blue Ribbon Downs, I was down the other day, and some of those trainers said if you ever wanted to suit up and ride a horse out at the track, they would gladly find you one.
Well, it'd be a sight to be seen, I tell
But
you.
they think it'd be a good draw. Thank you.
Be sure to let communications know when that goes down. I think we'll want video of that. Okay, is that all? Harley?
Chuck, thank you for your service. The other question I had is, when you do the COVID shots on Saturday, now who's actually injecting the shots? I'm surely it's not you or.
Well, we're all thankful that's the case, not the case. So, no, actually, the Cherokee Nation Health Services will be the provider there, and so their staff will be coming over and administering the shots and coordinating. We'll provide some logistical support there, just in the form of traffic control and those sorts of things, but. We'll leave the healthcare to the healthcare professionals.
Okay, well, sounds great. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, anything else? All right, Chuck, I don't see anything. I'm going to cut you loose.
Thank you guys very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Up next is our treasurer, and she's in the room. Take it away, Trey.
Got something to hand out real quick. Okay. I will start off with my just regular monthly report. And this is the report for the month ending January 31st, 2021. You guys can see the normal stats and figures there in the front. I did want to address Councilor Buzzard. Last month you had asked about the Sovereign Wealth Fund, and I wanted to let you know that on page 11, that data that you were asking about is in there on page 11. And I also wanted to let the council know that the Cherokee Nation Finances Department has won another award from the Government Finance Officers Association, this time for the Popular Annual Financial Report. And that is a report that is a condensed version of our comprehensive annual financial report. And it's one that's presented in a summarized, more easy to read format, that's maybe for those who don't have an extensive background in finance and accounting, but they still want to know the goings-on of the Cherokee Nation. So we do that report in an effort to increase our governmental accountability and transparency. So we have again won the report for that. So that brings the total to 3 awards that we've won this year. We won the JFOA Award for our budget presentation, our comprehensive annual financial report, and the popular annual financial report. So very proud of the financial resources staff for those accomplishments. So I'll pause there if there are any questions on the regular monthly report before we go into anything else. Nope. Okay. So last month,
Shambo.
just wanted to recognize you too for National Women's Month. We appreciate all the hard work you do, and just to let you know, you are very appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yes, Madam Chair. Yes, Trayland, would you explain to us how we might accommodate the Honor Guard in their requests for financial support? We had issues with how they might be compensated, but we need to set up where the group would not be taxed in some way, individuals, and we had an issue like that. But I spoke to the chief of staff somewhat about this, but would you explain what your idea would be on how we could handle this?
Yeah, so, and I believe that the idea was to actually include them in the budget, right?
Yeah, well, just an update, if I might, Speaker.
I'll let you know that.
Yesterday, I actually spoke to Mr. Morales, that is the commander of the Color Guard, and we are working on and assisting them with their 501c19 status, which is nonprofit for a military organization. They've already drawn up several of the bylaws and done a lot of work, and so we want to be respectful of that, but I think we have a course of action and a plan to assist them, and they still move forward with their plans of what they wanted to try and do. And we had some issues related to tax ID numbers and that being applied correctly, and the original organization had lost its IRS nonprofit status back in 2017, if I recall correctly. And we're working with them right now, and our Attorney General's office is reviewing their documentation so that we can prop them back up and get them set up.
Okay.
And then in the meantime, we'll see what we can do to assist them without violating or putting anybody in jeopardy of additional tax liability.
Okay. Thank you very much. Just wanted an update. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Counselor Junior Smith?
I wish there would be some way that we could, in the future, have one for the north and one for the south, because some days you have conflicting deal and they miss out. So I just think it'd be better if we could, a tribe our size, if we could have one for the north and one for the south, if possible.
I will tell you that the commander has some pretty aggressive plans and thoughts about how to expand and move out in the future, and not only address those needs, but also the needs outside the jurisdiction of the Cherokee Nation. So they've got some pretty good ideas and thoughts about how to move forward. So we're trying to prop them up, help them as best we can, and get them in a good spot.
Okay, Trey, carry on.
Okay. So last month it was, requested that we give a little bit more detail on how the funds were spent. The funding that was provided to CNB was spent, so I have a presentation to go over that. There was $127 million allocated to Cherokee Nation businesses. And this first slide shows how the funds were spent by CNB. We have it broken down here in a couple of different sections. So that first line you'll see, that is the compensation for the employees while the casinos were under a required closure that was, began, I believe, March 17th, right after Chief Hoskin signed the state of emergency declaration. So those businesses were closed, I believe, for about 84 days, and that amount, that 42.9 million, is what was used to pay the salaries during the closure. And then when those businesses reopened, and from March through January, that was scaled down, and the compensation was only used for those employees who were substantially dedicated to the mitigation of COVID-19. So what they did was they repurposed some employees whose jobs would still sort of be obsolete, right? So those in group sales, those who worked at the joint for, concerts and things like that, that in probably some other company would have been laid off or still laid off. we redirected those employees to things like the clean team and to the monitoring, taking people's temperatures when they came in the doors and those activities that are dedicated to the mitigation of COVID-19. And so for the months from March all the way through January, that $43.9 million has been going to pay the wages and, compensation and benefits of those employees that are substantially dedicated to the mitigation of COVID-19. So the total of the $127 million, the total compensation amount was $86,891,708, which is 68% of the total amount of funds given to reimburse CMB for their COVID expenses. And then we move on down, and again, breaking it into the two kind of sections there, the time while they were closed, and then the time while they were open. We paid the expenses while they were closed, so that 84 days while they were under a mandatory closure. The $31 million, which represents 24%, was used to pay those fixed operating expenses during closure. And those fixed operating expenses, again, that's, operating expenses as defined under GAAP and or GASB. And then when they reopened, we scaled that back again. And then these were only reimbursements for specific COVID expenses that, were expenses to mitigate COVID-19. So the replenishing of the PPE, the mask, the replenishing of the sanitizer, the additional of these, like these plastic or plexiglass barriers that had to be done. And that's for the period, again, from early June through January. And that represents 6% of the total amount that was sent over. So the total reimbursement for COVID expenses of the $127 million, the total percent of COVID expenses, reimbursement for COVID expenses was 31%. And then this 1% here is 1.2 million, and that is for interest that CNB paid because they drew down $100 million on their line of credit in response to this pandemic. They knew they needed more cash on hand, especially in the early days before the CARES Act had been passed and before we knew what our allocation was going to be specifically, because CNB, a 30-day working capital for CNB is $70 million. So it takes $70 million just to pay the bills for CNB for a month. So they drew down $100 million, and under the guidance, I think it's specifically frequently asked question, I think it's number 50. I'd have to go back and double check that, but you can pay the interest on loans and drawdowns and stuff that you've made specifically for the, drawing down funds and taking out loans to help get you through this pandemic. So that brings us to the $127 million in total. Are there any questions about that? I also will add real quick, that the total compensation, that saved 4,800 jobs at CNE and CNB, and the vast majority of those were Cherokees. So I think maybe right at 3,000 of them were Cherokee citizens. So, and this was for the 10 gaming facilities. So you're thinking, this is a big operation that they have. So these are big numbers, but, it's a big operation too. So,
Okay, does anybody have any questions before she goes on? Take it in bite-sized pieces here, because it's a pretty big thing. Okay, carry on.
And these are just a couple of pictures to kind of actually show you sort of what those employees were doing. You know, the health screening and the cleaning and kind of how life at the gaming facilities has had to change. And, you know, it really has changed. You think of casinos, those are they're meant to be social, they're meant to be communal, and then you have to completely do a 180 and pivot, and now you're trying to keep people apart. So there were a lot of adjustments that had to be made, both procedurally and physically, so. Wanted to clarify a couple of things for the record. And talk about how the funds were not used. So none of the $127 million was used to pay employee bonuses. Under the guidance, it was specifically, bonuses were not eligible expenses under the guidance. So so CMB did pay bonuses to all of their employees. But none of the CRF funds were used to do that. Also, none of the CRF funds were used to replace lost revenue or income. These funds were used only to reimburse CNB for their eligible COVID expenses. And this is something that is not unique to Cherokee Nation. Almost every tribe that has gaming operations or any business operations did the same thing. And we had extensive conversations with both our auditors and our consultants and attorneys and, submitted questions to Treasury prior to the execution of this. And all parties agreed that this was eligible, the use of this funds was eligible to reimburse our businesses for their COVID-related expenses in the manner that we did it. I did want to point out that the funds were used only for the businesses inside the 14 counties, inside the reservation, because the diversified businesses, the more of the government contracting side of the businesses, they call it CFED or Cherokee Federal. They operate more on a broad scale. That's the division that operates nationwide and even internationally. They were able to quickly pivot to a telework situation and continue to operate their government contracts that they had. So they never were in a shutdown period. So none of the CRF funds were used to pay the CFED payroll or anything like that, with the exception of CNI in Stillwell, because we did shut down CNI in Stillwell because Stillwell was such a, I think they called it what it was, a hot spot for transmission, and it was one of the counties that was in the red very early on. And at that facility, they are required to come in. It's a manufacturing facility, so they had to come in on the floor. So we did use CRF funds to pay some payroll for this CNI employees. Wanted to be clear about that. And not finally. Also wanted to point out, I think there's been some misinformation about the litigation that CNB is in regarding its business interruption insurance. So CNB is in some litigation about business interruption insurance. They have business interruption insurance they paid into for many, many years. And it is, their belief that this falls under that, business interruption. And if they were to win that case, part of that would be that they would get reimbursed for their lost revenue. The insurance company disagrees, and that is what's currently being litigated. That case has not been resolved. And, you know, I don't know what the result of that case will be. I don't know how many years it will take to resolve that case. And there's a slight concern that even if CNB were to prevail in that case, and the court says that, yes, this is a business interruption, and yes, insurance company, you do need to reimburse them for their lost revenue. I think the concern is whether or not the insurance company is going to be, have enough cash to actually pay that, because of the huge amount of losses. And I may be incorrect, but I think that our insurance company may also insure one or two of the other tribes' casinos. So then if you add ours and theirs, then you're talking some really big numbers, and there's some concern about, even if we won, whether or not we would recoup any of it. But we're not even there yet. We haven't even won the case. And especially since the COVID pandemic pretty much shut down the legal system for a while, there's quite the backlog, and we don't know when that's going to be resolved. And then finally, wanted to clarify again that CNB did not use the proceeds, their $127 million that was provided to them to purchase the Media Production Center / Northern Warehouse in Owasso. That is a project that was done by Cherokee Nation. It was done with CRF funds, but it was not done by CNB. I think I've tried to make that clear in this meeting several times. That is a Cherokee Nation-owned building. That is a Cherokee Nation-owned project, and it will remain so for the foreseeable future. We have an MOU in place with the Cherokee Nation Businesses Film Office to help produce some of our public health messaging videos that we're putting out, but it is not a Cherokee Nation facility. So wanted to be very clear on that as well.
Oh, Trey, Counselor Duncan?
Yes.
Treasurer, is that what, when people are referring to the sound stage, is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay, so since we did use CRF funds to purchase it, can you tell me why it was an allowable expense?
Absolutely. So the purpose of that and the thought process behind it was, it's got multiple uses, right? Obviously, on the warehouse portion, we did not have a warehouse on the northern end of the reservation up there. Right now, that warehouse is currently stocked with dry goods and PPE and other COVID mitigation supplies that we warehouse there, and we can easily get it out to the community centers on that side, on the northern side of the reservation up in Washington County and Gore and all those areas up there. On the Media Production Center, number one, it's a place that we can record, high quality COVID messaging, and we can do that in both English and Cherokee. I think that you guys may have seen the videos now. There's a couple of them out. They've been on Facebook, and they're circulating throughout. One of the ones that I really appreciate is the one with Dr. Montgomery, where he goes into depth about the vaccine and trying to dispel some of the myths about the vaccine. But, I always find that people are more comfortable with things when they fully understand them. So he gets into the whole, like, this is the coronavirus, and these are the spike proteins, and this is what the mRNA does, and this is what, the mRNA is not a new technology. We've been doing mRNA vaccines for 10 years, so this wasn't necessarily a rush to market with these vaccines, and, it does not change your DNA sequence, and it's a really great video. If you haven't seen it, I would suggest it. And there's a whole series of those medical health videos that are done or are, very close to being done in queue for release. The other great thing about it, at the time we purchased this building, we did not have a vaccine. We didn't know when a vaccine was going to come. All of our counties were in the red for community transmission, and we were losing speakers at an unprecedented rate, which is, unacceptable under any circumstances, but especially unacceptable when we were already in the midst of a language crisis. There had been a state of emergency declared with our language prior to the pandemic. So when we're losing our speakers at that rate, it becomes, I don't know what a word more than emergency is, but that's what it was. So of course we had to shut down all of our in-person language programs because we had to protect our speakers. This facility was designed in a way that we can bring those speakers in a very safe manner. We can put them in a room completely by themselves, like in a sound stage, or not a sound stage, but like a sound booth type thing, where they can speak, and there's like a camera that can be trained on their mouth, and it can be relayed to someone who's then in a suit that's doing the motions, and it projects it onto the screen in a cartoon, right? So, our cartoons that we've produced, and the cartoon's mouth moves along with the speaker's mouth, and the body moves with the other person who is in a different room, and we can make those Cherokee language cartoons and the stuff that we're doing, in our language effort, our language preservation efforts. We can use it on that level. We can use it on, it doesn't have to be a cartoon if it's geared for older kids or adult learning. The possibilities are endless, and it's basically like just TV screens. So you don't have to build a set. You just kind of pull up one on your computer. So these things are interchangeable, and we can do these videos really quickly. But, at the time, like I said, we didn't have a vaccine. There were talk about, this going into 2022. And with us losing speakers that quickly, we just did not have time to wait that long. We had to get creative. We had to think outside the box. We had to think big to save our language. And then finally, another use for it is digital court. Especially under the McGirt decision, we now have an added responsibility for a lot more court decisions. And that facility has a live broadcast capability. So we can have one judge who can safely be in that facility and can live interact with the inmates who are in jail. And we have, high quality IT equipment there. Because there's not a court reporter, so you have to have the high quality IT equipment to record those proceedings, and then you have to have redundancy, of course, so you don't lose them. And that gives, in fact, that judge the ability. They can hear a case from Washington County, then they can hear a case from Sequoia County, and then they can hear one from Adair County, all from one place safely. So, there's really a plethora of reasons under there. And of course, there's other distance learning stuff. I could keep going, but that's the gist of it. Does that answer the question, or do you have any further?
I was just wondering how that was, part of it, and that sounds great, that's outstanding.
So were there any other questions on how the funds to CMB were not used?
I don't see any.
Okay. So, just in general, I think it's important to kind of really set the stage here about how devastating COVID was and what could have happened. This shows, there's a $105 billion loss on the hospitality market nationally. And what's most startling to me of this is that 103 million hospitality jobs were lost. That is a lot of jobs lost. Of course, and then the travel and tourism decreased by almost 50%. And then there's almost 70 casinos that are still just completely closed today. And I know that I'm being redundant here. I know that everyone in this room already knows it, but maybe for the folks at home, the reason that we have these tribal businesses is because over the years, over the decades, states have encroached upon tribals' taxation jurisdiction to such an extent that we essentially don't have a taxation jurisdiction basis, right? So we have, just like federal, state, and local governments have essential government functions that they have to perform, but they're funded with tax revenue. Tribal governments have essential government functions that we have to perform, but we don't have tax revenue. So to our credit, people before me, not to my credit, it was people smarter than me before my time, they turned to this business model and they started these businesses. And I think it's important that we very clearly equate in everyone's mind tax revenue to state and local governments is equivalent to business revenue for tribal governments. So our businesses are not for-profit companies. They are governmental revenue entities. That revenue comes back into the tribe and allows us to perform essential government functions, right? So that is why our businesses are so critical for tribes. And that's not unique to Cherokee, that's all of Indian country. So, without our businesses, we're in a bad place. And I think this kind of shows that, had we not been able to, provide some economic relief to our businesses, we would have been in a bad place. But, I just want to say that to any of the CNB employees that are maybe watching today, that we appreciate them and stepping up in what they did, just like we appreciate the nation employees for stepping up in what they did, and as well as, I appreciate what this council has stepped up and done, and administration in general. I think that in the past year, we've accomplished a lot of things that if you would have said this is what we're going to do at the beginning of this pandemic, a lot of people would have just laughed and said, no, you're not. You'll never get that done. But we did, and we owe it a great deal of debt to a lot of people for having come together to do that. So, comparing and contrasting what happened in the national market to what happened to CNB, we were closed for 84 days. There's 2,300, almost 2,400 Cherokee citizens employed just at the Cherokee Nation Entertainment gaming facilities. It doesn't include the Cherokees employed by Cherokee Nation Businesses, the parent company. But you want to, and CNB lost, $366 million in revenue. But they didn't lose a single job. And no employee lost a paycheck. So I think that's something to be incredibly, incredibly proud of. And then again, I do want to point out, this is cumulative, right? So you're adding each year on top of each other. But, over the past 10 years, CNB has contributed in that governmental revenue back to the nation, $728 million. And I will say that the majority of that has been in the last 4 to 5 years. It's really ramped up in the last, 4 to 5 years because the businesses is on a growth cycle, and so as the businesses grow, so does that, revenue back to the tribe to continue growing our services to the citizens. And we want them to continue on that trajectory. And the money that we were able to reimburse the money from the Coronavirus Relief Fund that we were able to use to reimburse their COVID expenses will, help them recover from this and help them get back on track for that, upward growth trajectory. And then finally, just a reminder, this isn't something new. This was a vision that was had back in 1969 when the first first Cherokee Nation business was started, which was Cherokee Nation Industries. And per statute, this is actually written in the statutes, that the mission of the businesses is not only to provide that revenue stream back to the nation, but it's also to provide good, sustainable jobs for Cherokees. So I think that it's something that we can all be proud of. But with that, I will open it up to any questions.
Counselor Austin?
More comment than question, but the unspoken thing is the number of jobs also created through the use of taro vendors. Mm-hmm. It's a huge shot in the arm for the economy of the county that I live in, and I know it is for all of our counties, but it's a huge change to our economies up there to have the money that flows from the Cherokee Nation business through Cherokee-owned, from the Cherokee Nation businesses through Cherokee-owned businesses.
Yes. And we were really proud that we were able to utilize so many taro vendors with the CRF funding too. We did, which was not an easy feat with how quickly we had to move on all of that, but we did a tremendous amount with taro vendors there as well.
I think it's also important to note that the income revenue from our casinos comes to us unrestricted. And so we have a lot of leeway in how we can utilize that rather than the federal programs that we administer. We can move a lot more quickly to address issues with that money. That's another reason that it's such an important stream of income for us.
Absolutely. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, it is actually surprisingly hard to find federal funding for our very cultural specific programs that we run. The vast majority of our very cultural specific activities are run via Gen Fund. So things like the Miss Cherokee pageant, the Remember the Removal bike ride, a lot of the language programs, those are all Gen Fund programs because it is hard to find federal dollars for those. So those tribal Gen Fund dollars are very precious dollars.
Okay, go ahead, Counselor No Fire.
I guess, did you make this report, or was it CNB that sent this over?
I made the report based on information from CNB.
Okay, well, I say that because there's a lot of questions here. When I say questions, just a lot of things that's not truthful, in the sense that just like the total Cherokee jobs lost was 0. I know for a fact that an employee who took time off from work because they were required to, due to exposure to COVID, then testing positive for COVID, so they were out, 20 some odd days, coming back to not having a job because they missed too many days. So that's a red flag with it there. I mean, I think that this is an effort to try to disclose where some of the money went to, but like the Media Production Center, that's 1.5 million to buy the building. But, I know that we also paid Creative Filter $4 million to create something, and they're contracted with Fire Thief Productions. That company is owned by a husband of the director of the film office.
No, it's not, sir. That's incorrect.
That is true, but I know that for a fact.
It is not true.
Well, then you just lied in front of the council because I have on record that it's factual.
Please tell me your source.
Those kinds of things, and that's the reason why I have an issue with where the funds have gone to, because you've made this report based off of what CNB sent you. Did they send you accurate details, or is this something that they felt like that was needed to cover their own butts and where they spent the money? I know that there's a lot of purchases that were come with land deals and buildings. I'm not seeing that in any of this report.
Land deals, please be specific.
Land deals are purchasing land.
Please be
They use
specific.
CARES Act money to be able to buy land. And so
Where?
whenever I see things that are in here that
Cherokee-
aren't accounted for.
Cherokee Nation businesses did
the
not
question-
buy
well, hang on,
any
finish and speaking.
land
Give me
with
just a
CARES
second
Act
to
money.
finish speaking. I'm trying to get to my conclusion, which I'm saying, if there's things aren't in here that I know for a fact that should have been, I question the entire report. That's all I'm saying here. You may not like that, but that's the facts.
I'm sorry, I
Okay.
think your facts are incorrect.
Well, that's fine, you can state that, then CNB gave you incorrect documents.
Can you please tell me what land you believe CNB purchased with CARES Act money?
I'm going just simply off of what the productions that was released in the media.
I
So
have seen where all the money
You
went.
go to the Muskogee Phoenix, and it tells you that it was purchased with Cherokee Nation Film Loss money, was purchasing this $6 million sound studio. And then you go through and you break down what the money was for, and it's not disclosed in this amount here. So it raises a lot of questions of where the money was going. I think that, we could all say, yeah, we're going to use the soundstage for great things. Well, we could go to Facebook and live stream Alice Jumper speaking Cherokee and learn it from her. I think that we could have put something like that here in our home area if we're going to do something like that. But to put it up in Owasso, away from where our speakers are, I don't think that this purpose for buying a soundstage was there, especially whenever we know that $4 million's not going to the soundstage, it's going for a production of
The
something
$4
else.
million for Creative Filter was for equipment, sir.
For equipment?
Yes.
Where's the equipment we spent? What do we buy it for? Who is Creative Filter, and why are they getting $4 million for equipment?
Creative Filter is a company that procured the equipment for us. The $4 million is a cost for equipment. And
Okay, so
they are
that's
not the spouse of anyone that works for Cherokee Nation or Cherokee Nation businesses.
So when you're trying, I guess that answers the question. So the point of where the money was spent, that's not in here, how the funds were used. Compensation,
report-
operating expenses,
This
COVID
report is
mitigation.
based on what CNB did.
Okay, so what CNB sent you is not what's in here, because I see
CNB
something
didn't buy
else.
any of that. Like I said, the Media Production Center was something that was purchased via Cherokee Nation.
Purchased through Cherokee Nation?
Yes.
Okay, because I see it differently on what I have in front of me. Cherokee Nation Film Offices, Creative Filter, $4 million, Nation, Building, Termite Inspection, $2,000, $1.5 million, Nation to reimburse C&B, $284,000 for demo of floor, $100,000 in Nation to reimburse C&B, which is design fee, framing sound panel, Nation to reimburse C&B. None of that stuff's in here. That's the
I have
reason
no
why.
idea what you're looking at.
Do I?
I have no idea what you're looking at, but those are costs that the
Those are
nation
private
paid.
information that I have
signed the
because it's not
AFPs
being
for those.
disclosed here to council where the
I
money
signed
went.
the AFPs for those. This is based on CNB alone, sir.
Well, I have it something different. I'm sorry that they didn't disclose that to you.
Is it possible that your information is incorrect?
No, my information's not incorrect.
Counselor Deere?
I just want to clarify something. Mr. No Fire, Counselor No Fire, you said speaker and you mentioned Alice Jumper. She's from that area. So I would have to say you subjecting all speakers are from this area is incorrect because Alice is from that area. Thank you. Have a good day.
Well, I'm having a great day, thank you, Joe. But I'm just saying that I know where a lot of speakers live at. A lot of them reside right here. Me personally, being the representative of this district, that's just what my one is. I feel like the majority of my speakers that are in my district, it's going to be difficult for them to go to Owasso. So if that was the intended purpose of it, it's going to be difficult. But whenever I break down the line item expenditure, which is what I had requested last month, and then we're going to talk about it in the bill that citizens are wanting to see where some of the funds are, I just don't see it here right now at the moment. So I think
Because
it
you're
was
looking
a way
at
to say
a
where it went
report
to. I think that's
that is
good. Hang on, I
based
think that's
on what
good.
CNB
I
has
think
done.
that's a good that we have this. It's a somewhere to start. But it doesn't disclose everything. So, appreciate it.
All right. Any other questions regarding this before? Go ahead, Counselor Crittenden.
Yeah, I just, Trey, when we put you in your position, got faith in you to crunch these numbers. I said it last month. If you look through here, what stands out to me, again, and this includes my C&I factory with lots of Cherokees down there. And I got lots of calls about it and visited with lots of people who didn't lose their job. Now, there's going to be situations everywhere at school, no matter where you work, where, somebody's in a situation for some reason, they did, but they didn't lose it because of COVID hit, the pandemic. We sent a lot of them home and paid them to be home. And I know lots and lots of people that appreciate that. And it just boggles my mind that we're trying to find something negative in this where how many thousands of jobs were saved. I mean, and I can just speak for Adair County, but I drive by there every morning to work. And there wasn't any cars in the parking lot, or very few for a long time. And they were getting paid. Now I drive by there, there's lots of cars in there. They're resuming their business. So I just, putting together all of this stuff, I appreciate the work that your staff did. And, you got babies of your own, and we can argue with you all we want to, but it's looking at just the jobs again that were saved with this. I love it. And what you were talking about, the sound stage thing, in my opinion, where that was meant if COVID continued, not to get the speakers out and take them up there. It was to get the broadcast out and just help. And, so many career opportunities are available with this thing. Once COVID gets done, we got a big warehouse full of stuff, and we can, sound stage, in our oath as well was culture. We're going to be able to get some culture out there worldwide with this good quality culture.
Very high quality.
So,
Little higher quality than Facebook Live.
But I just, I'm appreciative of this. My folks are appreciative of, once again, the job, keeping their jobs, getting paid. And I felt like that some of that was being overlooked. But this old seat appreciates that. So thank you.
Where are you getting your information at, Councilman Nofar?
That's private. I have to worry about employees. I have to worry about citizens getting retaliated when they have information.
Okay. Well, I guess my deal is when I look at things and I listen to everybody talk. I have to make an informed decision on what I'm going to do. And, you know, on one hand, I'm sitting here listening to you accuse this lady of not having all her facts straight and just get them from one side. And on the other hand, when I want to hear that justification from you, what you're doing, you can't give it to me either. So I really don't see any different from what she's doing than what you're doing. I don't. You can't tell me anything where you got your information, and you're claiming that she's wrong. So I know that I'm kind of with Councilman Crittenden that we've done a lot of good things for people. And it's been laid out several times. We get audited internally. We get audited externally. I mean, it's like none of this is even getting looked at. This gets looked at by outside agencies. But whenever I sit here and listen to all of this, what's going on, there is no justification what you're saying that I can have unless you can prove what you're talking about. And you're not doing that to me. You can't give me the facts of where you get it. I understand why you're saying, because it's confidential material. But on the other hand, whenever she says, or our FOIA says that we can't, or they can't give it to you because it's confidentiality, then it seems like it's a different standard. We're all at the same standard here. We can either give that information out or we can't. And if you don't want to give that information out, or can't, or don't feel comfortable, whatever your reason is, I'll respect that. But then respectfully, my opinion is that it doesn't mean a whole lot to me if you can't prove what you're allegating. Either way.
And I appreciate that. I understand, you know, coming from the role that you have, that they're in the same way here, that you're hearing things that I can't give over facts. That's what it comes down to. It becomes kind of a hearsay out here whenever I say something if I can't back it up, because these are somewhat factual here because they were brought to us. And I think that those questions and those information that I receive as a council member, I keep them dear and close to my chest. I'm sure everybody here may receive things that are questionable. And whenever I do, I don't bring those up. But whenever I do see something that is wrong, I have to call it out. I cannot call it out with what I have as a factual with it, just because I have to worry about there's a lifeblood on the other side. And
Well,
that's the reason why I have to say what I said, because there was some conflicting interests from what I've seen here versus what I've also seen otherwise. And that's why.
Okay.
Speaker.
Well, onto that respect, I'll just say this and I'll be brief. But what you're presenting is also hearsay. It is. Because you're being told something by somebody, that's hearsay. So that's my whole point, is there has to be the same set of standards for everybody, not just one. And you are subject to that too. And what you are saying is hearsay because you're not bringing facts into evidence of what you're talking about. And I understand why. But that's just my point.
And that's the reason why I was bringing forward this bill that's going to be discussed here in a little bit. So that way we have an accountability, that way we can see things as facts, everybody.
Well,
Speaker,
before,
if I may.
well, okay, I'll
Okay, hang
reserve
on
my right for
just
later.
a minute. Speaker?
Yes, mine will be brief. Trillion, as the largest tribe in the United States, we will have OIG come and look at our funding and how we spent this COVID relief fund, correct?
Absolutely.
I mean, us in the Navajo Nation, we better get ready and have our books in line.
We do have our books in
I
line.
mean, that's pretty routine
Yes.
to have something of that level to be scrutinized like that, and we will be. So I remember the conversation we had back in March when we first started applying for this, that you were going to be very sensitive and keep everybody in compliance on how we were going to spend these funds. So us in the Navajo Nation, you know, here we better be ready. And I think we should have an initial audit coming down real soon, correct?
Correct. We will have, our annual financial audit will be prepared and ready by March 31st. That's our constitutional deadline. It'll actually be prepared a couple days ahead of that, but it will be done by March 31st of this year. And it
Okay.
will be a clean opinion.
Okay, that's one. How many other reviews will we have after that?
Oh, if you want to talk about how many sets of eyes are on this funding, you can start internally, and you've got, the initial review, the initial just like pondering of the ideas, and that's a group of people, and there are, at least 4 attorneys in that group, including myself, where I'm an attorney and I'm an accounting professional. And then from there, we have outside consultants who are highly trained and from a large international firm that represents over 130 other tribes. And then we also have a COVID team. I call them the COVID team. And they're some of my top financial resource people, staff that I've pulled together. And amongst that financial resource staff, there's over 227 years of finance and accounting experience. 162 of those years are right here at the Cherokee Nation. And amongst the 11 people on that team, there are over 17 college degrees. And that's just the internal review. And then externally, you have the annual financial audit that's done by BKD, which is our independent CPA firm. That's what will be presented and ready by March 31st of this year, which will be a clean opinion. BKD will do another audit of these funds under the single audit, which the purpose of the single audit is for them to specifically look at federal funding and analyze the funds and ensure that the way we've used the funds is in line with the regulations and rules on how the federal agencies allow us to use those funds. And the CRF is the largest program under that single audit, so it'll have intense scrutiny on it under that program. That audit should be done in June. And then we also have quarterly reports that we have to submit to Treasury OIG regarding these funds. And the Treasury OIG, as you mentioned, has full oversight and authority to audit all of these funds. So, I mean, there are at least 6 layers here of scrutiny on these funds.
Okay. All right, we go through quite a bit of scrutiny, so.
I would like to address one matter. Again, I don't know what your source of information is, but I'll extend the offer once again, like I've done in previous meetings, that under GRA, you are entitled to see all of this information. And you are welcome to come to my office and go line by line to look at all this, and I can explain to you why your information is incorrect, and I can show you the correct information.
I appreciate that offer. I think it's just more of, this is all taxpayer money, and it's ultimately the tribal citizens, are asking to see where it went. And that's just kind of the easiest way to explain it, and that's the reason why, we'll discuss, this resolution coming up here in a minute about it.
Counselor Austin, did I get to you?
I just heard the reference to some information coming out of the Muskogee Phoenix. I read in the newspaper all the time where they reference Cherokee Nation businesses as Cherokee Nation. Something being said in the newspaper is an outside source with where we have no control over. And that simply is, the information may be almost very accurate, but I can guarantee it very rarely is 100% accurate when it's in the newspaper. So take that into account when you read something in the newspaper, regardless of which newspaper.
And Counselor Buzzer, did you have something to add?
Comment, that the money we're talking about here is actually the Cherokee citizens' money. It's not our money, it's not the chief's money, it's not the treasurer's money. It's to be spent for Cherokee Nation's people and their welfare. Just some thoughts, and I'll just tell you what I'm thinking. We probably needed the place that we bought in Owasso. I know the Cherokee Nation has spent millions of dollars in Adair County, millions of dollars in Delaware County, where we have our Kenwood Reserve and have reserve land in Adair County. Millions. I guess when I was in the roads program, I thought, well, we get all this infrastructure built, then we can put jobs in those particular areas. Because those are our tax-free based lands, and that's what we're doing with our money. If you look at the roads program as how they allocate roads dollars to put in certain areas, that's part of it. That's part of putting infrastructure in to build industry. I don't have anything against buying a place up in Owasso. We probably needed it. But I guess we spent all these millions of dollars and we haven't done anything down there to put jobs where Cherokees live. And I'm not saying there's not Cherokees that live in Counselor Austin's district, but if you look at that, you look at all the job opportunities that there are in Tulsa. The opportunities in Claremore, there's quite a few. And you look at the opportunities in Jay, Salina, Pryor. There's not that many job opportunities for Cherokees to get. My thought back then, when we built the infrastructure to put roads to where you could bring semi trucks in there, put water lines in there, then we could actually start looking at industry for people that can't go to Tulsa, can't go to Claremore, can't go to Miami to get those jobs. But that was my long-term thinking, but I guess the reason I'm saying that is the sound stage could have been maybe in our Pryor Industrial Park because it's more centrally located, and just like Counselor up there talk about full-blood Cherokees, and I'm sure they're all over, but it seems to be more full-bloods in Adair County or in Mays County and Delaware County. We don't have those numbers, and I wish we did have them. That way we'd know. But overall thinking, I guess the big picture is I don't think it was really brought to the council to get our input on things like that, and I wished it would have been. I think these decisions were made probably by who? The chief and some of his people that are on board with him, but still, I thought when we were looking at CARES money, we had given the chief operation authority to spend contracts of $1 million. Do you remember that, Counselor? That when we got the CARES Act dollars, we passed a resolution here that the chief could spend contract money up to $1 million on any contract. Am I correct? Yeah. He can sign a contract up to $1 million. Yes, and I think that's why it was, that he could sign a contract up to $1 million because we couldn't have a contract that was needed to sign like today for $500,000, that had to come back to the council, so we give him authorization to sign up to $1 million on anything that he could buy.
That was supposed to expire in June, though, I think. Is that correct?
I think it was,
Yes.
yes.
That was also for contracts that included a waiver of sovereign immunity.
It could have been. I don't remember that part there, but it could have been. But anyway, it was, I think what you said, it expired in June, so I don't know if we ever went back to revisit that, but I think it's something that we probably need to go back and revisit because I'm sure we're going to be getting millions of dollars more in this next stimulus package that's coming out. So not try to limit that, but I just want to bring that to attention of every council member here because we all voted on it, that he could sign contracts to $1 million. So anyway, that's just my thinking. I just wish that all the dollars that we spend in Adair County, and I'm from Delaware County, but those are two reserve areas. And that was our thinking, we'd put roads in those particular areas and we actually contract and get businesses in there. So I think we need to look at our strategy of what we were doing. And there's nothing against Tulsa County or Rogers County or any place like that, but I'm talking about, and I hate to say poor Cherokees, but I have them in my district. They can't afford to drive to Tulsa, can't afford to drive to Claremore, and so my thought was we get more industry down here to where they could drive to, but anyway, that's kind of a long speech that I'm making here, but I just want to remind us about the $1 million signatures and stuff like that so we can actually take a look at that again when the new dollars come in. Anyway, thank you for the report, Carolina. I think that helps a lot. So thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Counselor Shaw has asked to speak, and she has not spoken before, so before I do second round, I'm going to let her go.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on Counselor Buzzard's comments and let you all know that $1 million was designated for health care, and it did expire in June. Our speaker's correct. Thank you.
Okay, round two, Kanan.
Well, to Counselor Buzzard's, what he was talking about, I do want to say that we created a PPE manufacturing facility there in Stillwell that's providing new jobs, and also expanded our human services, career services offices, and it's probably going to provide some more jobs eventually too there. But I did want to ask you, Treasurer. So you touched on how things are being scrutinized right now as far as audits are concerned. Can you talk about that a little more in depth, since we are kind of getting today? We're going to talk about this resolution about forensic audits. Can you speak to that some more?
Give me just a minute. I would prefer to anything that is specific to the COVID relief funds. I would like to hold that until we discuss this resolution that's been proposed, so that we can go ahead and get career services and also the commerce to report. Councilor Shambaugh?
Just wanted to tell Councilman Buzzard, he's asked questions a lot about the trees and things, and I happened to be going to Kenwood the other day, and the BIA was out there at the pine trees just past Tag Flats. And I had asked them, I said, what can we do with these trees? I mean, can we cut these trees? He said the only thing that you could really do with these trees is sell them for pulp. He said by the time that you ship them where you had to ship them, he said you guys aren't going to make any money at all. So I said, is there anything else we could do? And he just said, I don't know what else you could do with these trees, because you can't do that because you're just going to break even. So, and that was the guy, and they were getting ready to do a controlled burn. So, he knows a lot about the trees, and because I was asking a lot of questions about why they were planted this way and things, and that's one thing that he did tell me. So we may be kind of at an impasse at that point on those trees. Just to let you know.
One more.
Speaker?
Trey, are we getting any, on the COVID relief bill, the latest one, are we getting any of that, the native language preservation funds?
We'll be writing, we have to write for that specifically. That's under
Okay.
the ANA, and we're going to have to fight for that money.
Okay.
But we
all
will
right.
be going after it.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Kanan, can you hold it, or you want to? Okay.
Well, I would prefer to hear it, but since we're on the subject now, but you're the chair, so.
I would prefer to put a pin in this conversation and let Commerce and Career Services go ahead and give their reports. Just don't go away. Trey, Lena, stick around, because we may need you during this resolution time also.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. All right. Diane Kelly, are you there with Career Services?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Very good. Very good. I just want to echo what Trey Leonard was saying when she talked about these audits and reviews. And this is something that you guys probably don't know, is that when we get these federal dollars on the service side that we're providing services to, we have to go through webinar trainings with the federal government and all the staff that are allocated to work in that arena. And all of the people that are working there have to submit resumes to the federal government that they know what they're doing and they're educated and trained to do this stuff. Those are things that we do on the front end side. Afterwards, then we go through reviews, and they're by our project officers. They do desk audits on us periodically, either quarterly or annually. And then there's a closeout process. That's what's done on the service side before it gets over here on the finance side, before they do the audit that Trey Lynn is talking about. And then after that, they may come and send an OIG audit down here, like Speaker Byrd said. And I can assure you, I've done my OIG audits very many times over the 40-something years I've been here. They go through it with a fine-tooth comb on both sides of the fence. And then we have to come back and prove what they're saying. And rest assured, we've had to go in when they said that we're going to make you pay back 400 and something thousand or $1 million and something dollars. We've had to go back and dig up all of these various receipts. We've had to go and get testimonials. You name it, we've done it, and we've proved it down to zero. And I can tell you that we got revenue sharing money back in the 80s. We got economic stimulus money in the 90s. And I can tell you that our finance office has come through with fine-tooth comb, and they came out smelling like roses. So I know it firsthand from somebody who's been here and worked on the service side and provided the services to the people. So I just wanted to give you that scenario because I know that we have a sound system because I have to work with them every day. And it is a pain for me some days, but I know why I'm doing it. We have a resumption plan that we had to submit to the federal government for the start back over at Job Corps. And we had to submit this plan, and it has to deal with the COVID and how we're going to have a safe environment for these students. What we're going to do once the students come back and how we're going to ensure that it's a safe environment going forward, and even when we're trying to help them get jobs and get them trained. The federal government is going to send somebody up here probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks and look at that resumption plan and look to see that we said that we're doing what we said we were going to do in that plan. So we're scrutinized on the program side just as much as the audits are to make sure that from a day-to-day operation, especially if you're running a 24/7 operation. So I'm sharing that with you because I don't think people realize that it plays across the board with everybody. If you have my report, we've got summer youth in our intern leadership program that's going to start. We're not really sure how we're going to do some of it, but we're going to do it like we did last year. And we will have a summer program, and George and Jeff are looking forward to it. We have been a lot of requests from our Cherokee Nation businesses because they're starting up some of their food venues. And then we were also working with Steve Jones and his unit at Hastings Hospital, Wayne Caldwell, and them, and we're trying to supply some of their needs that they have. We have a new office in Stillwell, as Councilman Duncan said. We are very excited about the new office. We're having some artwork put in it through C&B. Want to thank Chuck and his staff for helping us with that. And then we also have a move that we made in Pryor, and I know that Councilwoman Taylor asked about a ribbon cutting. We have not done the final punch list or the final walkthrough. That won't happen until April. They're still doing some repairs and work up there through the CB, Brian Hunt and Ryan Bennett. And we hope to have that completed sometime in April. So I know that with Jennifer Kirby and her unit, we'll get together with Todd and Tina and the chief's office to do something over in Stillwell later on after we get everything set up. We are looking for a place in Veneta, so we hope to have an office up there, Councilwoman Vasquez. And we've been visiting with Councilwoman Dora for Bartlesville to try to get some field days established up there in the Bartlesville area, especially before summer youth hits. So we are looking at doing some expansion in the northern area, and I know that a lot of people think that we just work in Adair, Sequoia, Cherokee, Mays, and Sequoia County. But, you know, we're trying to hit all of the 14 county area, and we realize that there is a need. I was on the telephone with a disabled veteran this morning who is from this area. He's really around from Salina area, and he told me, he said, you all need to get more services up in this area for some of us, especially our veterans. And I told him, I said, well, we're working on it. And he said, well, he appreciated all the help that the Cherokee Nation was giving the veterans and giving all of the elders, because he said he had an elder mother, and he said if it wasn't for Cherokee Nation, he wouldn't have been able to get some of the health needs that he needed. So those are some good testimonials, and sometimes you don't hear the good things. We are going to be putting a new booklet together on our offices, our staffing. I gave this out, I think it was back in the summer, and we'll have some new council members probably in June or carryovers, and we'll try to have that booklet ready to go for the orientation for the new council members when they come on board. I wanted to point out, Councilman Shambaugh talked about the control burn and the BIA being up in Delaware County. Reuben Chuckluck, our fire coordinator, was also up there as well, and they're going to be up there working on that controlled burn probably tomorrow or Monday of next week. They have been going out every weekend since fire season started, and he works very closely with the BIA. They are the ones who do all the dispatching for that fire program to go out. They had 13 fire calls weekend before last, and probably had 15 last weekend. So they are very busy, and the BIA recognizes all the work that Reuben and his fire team's doing. So if you see them out there, you might pat them on the back because they've been putting in some long hours. Brenda Fitzgerald is back. She was one of the employees who had to go home, and she's back. And we were told through HHS that there's a possibility that we're going to get about $2 million added to our TANF program. So we're kind of excited about that. We haven't gotten it yet, but that's what's in the works. And we are going to be cranking out some more grants during the month of April and May. That's the grant season. So staff are all on board, and you may hear about some of the grants that we're going after. But we're just real busy. We have been busy since June. We haven't missed a beat, and we kept everything going from June on. And I just want to commend my staff because I know that a lot of people are home working. And I told somebody this morning when we were going down the hall for Women's History Month, I said, my people didn't go home. They were out here working every day. And I just want to commend the career services staff because they have done an outstanding job during this pandemic.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Diane? I have one. I think I say it every month, Diane. I really appreciate the personal stories that you put in your reports. It's just awesome to put a face to the good work you're doing. I hope you never stop that.
Thank you. That's that 4-H in me.
Yeah. Okay, we'll let you go. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, for commerce, I think we have Stephen Hires, baby.
Yes, hello.
Hello. Take it away.
So Anna regrets that, thank you, Madam Chair. Anna regrets that she's not able to be here with you all today, but you do have a copy of her report. So if there are any questions I may be able to answer for you, or I can take back to Anna, I'm happy to do so.
I have one question, and it is on the VITA program. Do you plan to extend that past April since the deadline has been moved back to June for Oklahoma? What's the plan there?
There is not. We are extending it for 2 more weeks past the time that we were currently shutting off. But as of right now, that is it. We're just extending it for 2 more weeks.
So
as we get closer to
end of April? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's the only thing that I had to ask. Does anybody have anything for Stephen? Okay. Appreciate you being patient with us.
Thank you all.
Okay, that brings us down to the consent items. The tarot certifications were in the book.
Make a motion, they be approved.
I have a motion and a second to approve those. All those in favor? Any opposition? Okay, community assistance. I think we got a new sheet. Oh, yes. Gail handed it out. And Jody is at your service if there's anything that you need last minute. Okay, I'm going to start right here with Counselor Duncan.
I missed one while ago, Jody. I need $1,500 for Stillwell Public Schools softball.
Stillwell, what was that again?
Public Schools softball.
Speaker Bird, your light's on. Did you need something, or are you just going to be ready to jump in?
Yes, Jody, I want you to clarify something. You know, we talked about the approval that we give the chief. I want to clarify something. You help me here. As long as the budget is in place, our chief can sign multi-million-dollar contracts, correct? What Councilor Buzzard was referring to is that anytime you're waiving sovereign immunity We gave that limit back then for $1 million. And that was a temporary to purchase a lot of the health PPE products at that time, correct?
Correct.
Now, and that expired in June. Okay, so that is correct on the?
Yeah, right.
Okay,
As long
all
as
right,
there's
I
a
just want to
budget
make
in
that,
place and there's no waiver of sovereign immunity, the chief can sign.
right. Anytime we're
Only
going to
when
waive
it
sovereign
becomes
immunity,
a
it has to
waiver of
come back,
sovereign immunity, does it have to come to the
has to come
council?
back to the council for approval. Okay, I want to make that clear. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, we're working on additions to community assistance. Do you have one, Mr. No Fire?
Yeah, $1,000 to Dry Creek General Baptist Church.
Okay, Counselor Deere.
City of Collinsville, 500.
Everybody else is good? Okay. Do we have a motion? Okay, I need a motion and a second. I got a motion? Got a motion and a second on community assistance. All those in favor? Any opposition? Aye. Okay. Law enforcement is the next one.
I have a whole bunch of additions here.
All right, take it away.
So, Councilor Jordan, 15,000 Cherokee County, 5,000 Tahlequah Police Department, 10,000 to Hulbert, 10,000 to OK. Councilor No Fire and Byrd will do 30,000 each to Cherokee County, 15,000 each to Tahlequah Police Department, and 5,000 each to NSU Security. Let's see, Councilor Taylor's doing 3,500 for Mays County Drop Task Force, 3,500 for Mays County 911. Rogers County 911, 1,750. District Attorney Matt Ballard, 1,750. Councilor Alston is also doing those last two, 1,750 for Rogers County 911 and 1,750 for District Attorney Matt Ballard. Councilor Legg and Smith are doing 4,000 each to Marble City, Muldrow, Rowland, Gore, Salsall, Vian, and Webbers Falls. And they're also doing 8,000 each to Sequoia County Sheriff. And I think that's it.
Okay, is everybody else good on their law enforcement? Okay, could I have a motion on those, please?
Second.
Motion and second on the law enforcement. All those in favor? Any opposition? Okay, the roads request,
Did you say roads?
roads.
I have one new addition to roads for Councilor Buzzard, East 328 Road, out of his motor fuel tax funds for $12,000.
I have a motion and a second on the roads request. All those in favor? Any opposition? Okay, there were some sports teams, quite a few new additions on those. I think this is just kind of for our information, so if somebody could give me a motion and a second. I have a motion and a second for sports teams. All those in favor? Any opposition? Okay, there were one livestock addition, so I would entertain a motion on those. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Okay, we don't have any old business. As we move into new business, I want to make note that in the last meeting, in the rules meeting, we had an agenda item that was erroneously placed on the rules agenda, should have been on this one, and so we will be taking that up as new business item number 2 after we do this budget mod. So if anybody wonders where that came from, it came from rules. Okay, this is a operating budget mod, JD. Have a motion and a second. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? Okay, If not, all those in favor? Any opposition? Okay. The agenda item from Rules was sponsored by Counselor No Fire, so I will let him introduce it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a resolution requesting an audit and investigation of COVID-19 emergency relief funds and calling for a formal hearing by the tribal council. I put that in the form of a motion, and I'll request the floor back once it gets seconded.
Madam Chair, I'll second the motion just for discussion.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right. So this resolution, it stemmed from citizens wanting to know, obviously, where the funds were. An attorney, the author, Selena No Fire, I think we all know her. She's worked here as a legal counsel before. She had written something that she was preparing to say. I'll say it real quick, real brief. She had to go pick her kids up from school. But the reason why she wrote it, it reads here, throughout COVID, I've been contacted by many citizens with various needs. I often refer them to services known to me that is available throughout the tribe. When the program, meaning the emergency relief program that we had back in November and December, really when it really got discovered, people started contacting me for help. Found out this program had no guidelines, that many were denied while others were approved. I know of citizens who at the rise of, or who are at the risk of eviction, who lost their jobs, who had family members who died due to COVID, and those who were sick themselves were denied any assistance. I also have been told that some had floors replaced, new tires, checks for thousands of dollars, mortgages paid off, and appliances and other goods were paid for them to them. Goes on to say that I wrote this resolution due to the number of citizens who requested it. They deserve to know where the money was spent. Ultimately, this is our tax dollars being spent just as any other government. The citizens have a right of transparency and disclosure. This council has the authority to investigate the sources and expenditures, all the CARES Act money, and and that's what they're asking the council to do this today. That was something that she had written, and the reason why she had wrote the this resolution that was brought to me by attention. Obviously, whenever I noticed it, there was a petition for just online citizens, because we're in a pandemic. They can't come here and rally to try to show support for something that they'd like to have done. And it's a very, in my opinion, the reason why I would sponsor it is because it's essentially, our tribe does audits. We know that. They do audits every year. They also have external audits that we do. The issue is that none of those audits disclose line item expenditures back to our citizens on what was purchased, how much money was spent where. And that's what they're requesting. It's requesting to show that, hey, we purchased, the $4.3 million for the land in Sequoia County. And that way they can go through and systematically be made aware of where this $500 million was spent. There are concerns of mine. Whenever this petition was made public, obviously it had 500 before I told, hey, I will sponsor it, I'll bring it before council, and I do believe that it's deserving to be heard. But one of the things that just kind of struck me, and I figured it should be shared with council, is that in September, a female reached out to the One Fire program after leaving a domestic relationship. She got zero help because I was told they were without funding. That's just one of many comments that I've heard throughout the time of this CARES Act money, specifically in regarding to the apparent $5 million that had ended in December, where people were getting thousands and thousands of dollar check. Whenever this program ceased to exist, once everyone found out about it, was remade public in January, it was up to $500, and now they're kind of just fighting over whether or not they're going to get $150 or $200. So they're upset. And, I speak on behalf of them on this petition and wanting to see it move forward, because I think it's our responsibility as council members, when we appropriated that to the administration, that we were told that we were going to be accounted on where the money was going to go to. A lot of these programs were made public at first, and then some of them weren't. some of them were handwritten checks given to individuals for untold amounts. And I think that that's what ultimately the citizens want, is they want that accountability. And, I hope that we can move forward with this. If we got to create a group, a committee to overlook the audit and get explanation with our CPA, along with the treasurer's office, to say, hey, listen, what was purchased here? What was this line item purchased for? We need to be able to disclose this back to our citizens of where we may have misused some of the money, or maybe we could do it better as we're about to receive a bunch more money from the federal government. Maybe we can fill those gaps and those voids so we don't have messages like that where someone that was in need was denied assistance because they said there was no money there and there was money other places. So that's the reason why I believe it should be passed, and we could take a look at where the money went to and be transparent back to our citizens. And I appreciate they giving me the time there. And obviously, if anyone has questions, I'll here to answer what I can, but I know a lot of them just stem from where citizens are at, so I wouldn't be able to answer on behalf of all of them.
Okay, I'm going to start with Counselor Duncan because he's been on hold.
Well, I would like for the treasurer to come back in and address it, since she knows factual information about our accounts and the audits, and she can go more in depth. So I would love for that to happen.
Is anybody opposed to letting our treasurer, Scott, have the floor to explain it before we continue discussion? You are, okay.
I'm not
Say your
opposed. I
piece.
just would suggest, I don't know if this is even correct saying, but not to raise our voice at any woman. I'm just speaking out. That's not cool. So you take it how you want to, legislate, whatever you want to do.
Okay,
With all respect, we need to still respect our women.
okay. All right, go ahead, treasurer.
Thank you. So I spoke to it a bit previously when I was here, but like I said, that I'm a bit confused by the resolution itself, because it speaks about the CARES Act, but then hearing Councilor No Fire's talk, it sounds like you're most concerned about the Coronavirus Relief Fund, which is just one portion of the CARES Act funding in total. So I guess there's some confusion there about what this covers, first and foremost. But speaking to what it sounds like you're most concerned about, which is the Coronavirus Relief Fund, again, this set of funds already has, 6 layers of scrutiny that it goes through, which is, internally, it has the first layer where it's just, just in the idea incubator with the team that has, 4 attorneys, including myself, that's the attorney / accountant, and then through outside consultants that review the projects, in conjunction with the guidance and the rules and regulations set forth by Treasury. And then by the COVID team within financial resources that we've put together. And as I believe I mentioned before, that team has a cumulative 227 years of experience in finance and accounting. And amongst the 11 of them, they have 17 college degrees. So that is a stellar group of people there looking at that amount of funding and the programs and the allowability of all the expenditures. So then externally, we've got BKD, who reviews this during our annual financial audit. And, the Coronavirus Relief Fund itself is $411 million, which is a large portion of money. And when you think that our normal operating budget, I believe when it was originally passed, was about $1.2 billion. So $411 million of that is a large percentage of that. So it's, they look very closely at that program. And that audit has a constitutional deadline of March 31st, which we will make. And we will have, we will be receiving a clean audit again this year, just like we have since 1999. We've gotten clean audits every year for dozens of years now. So then it will be reviewed again during the single audit. Again, BKD does that audit. And the purpose of the audit, which is defined under Part 200 of Title II of the Code of Federal Regulations, is to review how the nation has managed its federal funding, specifically to ensure that we have followed the rules and regulations dictated by the federal government, and to ensure that we have spent the funds in accordance with those rules and regulations. Again, we have passed that audit with a clean audit for multiple years now. I think the last time we even got a finding on that audit was back in like 2013. So in this year, we expect a clean audit again. And then finally, the CRF is subject to quarterly reporting to Treasury, and believe me, it is intense reporting to Treasury. I submitted a report to Treasury in January that was 338 pages long. It was not fun to do. So they have those reports, and then, of course, they have full audit and oversight over these funds. And since we are the tribe that received the second largest allocation of the funding, they're coming. I mean, it's more or less a given that they're going to come and look at these funds. They're going to come and audit us at some point. So we are prepared. We have justification memos that we prepared for all of the projects that were done, all the purchases that were made, and we have audit files ready for this stuff. So just a bit more about the Financial Resources Department, because this is certainly not something, you know, I don't have any disillusion that I alone run all of this stuff. I have a team of over 100 very talented employees that you know, keep the train arriving on time. And I just wanted to throw out some numbers here. Since 2013, the Financial Resources Department has undergone 107 agency audits. So this is excluding the single audit and the annual financial audit that they do each year. We've undergone 107 federal agency audits, during which they've audited over $420 million, and during that time, they have only found $4,159 worth of costs that were unallowable expenses. And that represents 0.001%. Or put another way, we get it right 99.999% of the time. And that is pretty remarkable. And the federal government and the federal agencies know this. We have a reputation amongst the federal agencies that the Cherokee Nation is really good stewards of federal funds. And that's almost a double-edged sword, because these federal agencies, they have to conduct audits each year, and they usually have like a quota that they need to meet, right? Well, the Cherokee Nation being the largest tribe, we typically get larger allocations of those funding allocations from the federal government. So in most cases, they can come and they can audit the Cherokee Nation, and they can meet their quota with one audit, and it's an easy audit, and they know it's going to be a clean audit. So we get audited over and over and over again. You know, it's fine. We're happy to do it. It does end up taking a lot of our time, but you know, we're not ever worried about it. We just, it's built into our jobs that we do daily. So, you know, I think that should give you guys kind of a broad overview of the multiple levels of scrutiny that we're under just constantly, and the level of performance that the Cherokee Nation finance team lives up to time and time again.
So to be clear, you've offered if we come to you to see line items because there is private information in there, you're good with that, correct?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
You said we could come see you if we had questions about different line items or something
Oh,
in the report, correct?
absolutely. So,
And yeah, that's all I needed. And then,
yeah.
the scrutiny is over and over, the federal, the external, and the internal audit. We have those as well. So, I mean, just there's a lot of different things here. But it seems like when you sign off, I mean, if they find something, we're definitely going to know when that happens. I mean, you're going to be audited over and over,
Yeah,
especially being one of the largest tribes.
yeah.
So, I mean, it is our job to appropriate funds. I mean, second of all, I mean, it's executive branch to spend it and make sure you're taken care of. So, but yeah, I know you do a great job with what you do. So I just wanted to clarify those things. That's basically all I had. I mean, because I know we're under the gun. I mean, the federal government, just like the state, looking at the tribes right now, is not in our favor. So I know they'll be coming when they come, and they'll look for any little thing. But second of all, I want to thank you for what you do. I know you've spent long hours on that couch, which I've called you many times at 9 o'clock, but you're doing a great job, and so's your staff. So that's all I had, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I want to specifically ask if Counselor Shaw has any questions. You're kind of removed from this, but I want to be sure that if you have any questions or anything to add, that you have your opportunity.
No, but thank you for asking. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Okay, do we have anything else?
Right here.
Yes, Counselor Smith?
Just real quick on the one fire incident thing we was talking about, I've had very positive feedback off the one fire. In fact, on a couple of my Facebook pages, I had posted how the people were bragging on one fire, how good it was doing. This is for, if we did do another audit, just what's a ballpark figure on what would that audit cost?
Well, we pay BKD around $360,000 a year to do the audit. So another audit, especially if you're doing a line-by-line audit, and that's part of it is it's really, it's easy to say line by line, but if you get into it and you look at just this accounting unit, you're talking hundreds of thousands of lines. So that kind of work is tremendous. I have done that. I did that for the January meeting where I went through and I classified everything and I made that presentation for y'all. And it takes a long, long time. That's why we can't go over that in these meetings, because you guys would need to not only pack your lunch, but pack your sleeping bags and a change of clothes and be prepared to stay for several days. So, and there's confidential information too, right? You know, we don't, like with the one fire, we can't disclose the names of the citizens that come to get the financial assistance. We can't disclose why they came. We can't disclose the amount they got. You know, they come to us in confidence. And there's been some FOIA requests that requested that information, but to break that confidence, you know, as you guys know, it's hard enough sometimes to get people to, you know, I don't want to say swallow their pride, but, you know, we're a prideful people, and to get them to accept the help is hard. So once we get them to come in and to trust us, if we were to give that information out, I mean, we would utterly lose the respect and trust of the citizens. So there's a lot of information under the CRF that can't be released to the public. But you guys as counselors do have access and are, you know, welcome to come and look line by line if you'd like. And you have that access, and I'm willing to sit with anyone who would like to do so.
Counselor Shambaugh?
I believe Counselor Austin was before me, but I'll go if he'll let me.
Go ahead.
Okay. It seems that there's thoughts, you're having thoughts that there's some wrongdoing going on.
I definitely think that, I can honestly say that if you look at where equalization of citizens who knew about certain funds before, after it was made in a public nature, there's some civil rights issue. It could have been violated. And I think that's the reason why people started calling an attorney, is because they felt that they were treated unjustly, because they didn't made aware of the money. When they found out, they were cut off or they were denied. Some people were denied. Now you hear, big checks that were created before. Now you're dealing with $150 whenever you should have been able to qualify more if you would have got to it at a different time, even though there's no guidelines at that point. So I think that was a concern I had personally, but I do think that would try to alleviate knowing where all the money went. And you can black out names, you can black out and just account for, this is what here, this is what here, this is what here, this is what here, and just go down the list of where we purchased 9 trucks, and we purchased over here. We sent, individual checks to community assistance funds through these dates. No names, but you could say $7,400, $8,500. What are they for? Well, it was for transmission, this, that, and other, and just go down through there, and nobody and no sensitive information with any one individual would be able to be exposed.
Okay, well, I don't know how you do things, but whenever somebody calls me with a problem like with One Fire, if they got denied, I call the head of that organization and say, hey, I just got a phone call from this person. They say they got denied. Why is that? Is that correct? I asked them, did you do that?
And I do the same thing. It's just
Did you
with
do
that.
that?
No, I do the same thing. With that one is something that I read just coming in here. I didn't know that there was comments on that petition page. This wasn't my petition. These are citizens talking amongst themselves. And I don't think that, I do think that it's good when when a citizen comes to one of our counselors and we can refer them, but how many of those citizens that don't know to contact us whenever there's something going on? Those are untold amount of problems that we don't know about unless we got a phone call. And not every citizen knows to contact their council member, nor should they be referred in by their council member as being the only way of knowing about something.
Well, I'll agree with part of that, but whenever, you've stated a lot of people got big checks, some got little checks, and I have called on those, because people call me and said, why did I get $150? And Human Services is probably sick of hearing, seeing my number come up. Can I ask them why? And do you know why they do that?
Yes, I do. Because I also asked why we had a qualification to have 7 household members to get $500. I do my work. I
Well,
do.
it's not even
It's
about.
not that, well, it's not that, because you're starting to question me whether or not I'm just getting citizens riled up. That's what it sounds like you're trying to do. They're already riled up. I'm just trying to give them an opportunity to maybe see where the money went, so that way we could alleviate the problem, or maybe when this next money comes along, we can say, here's what we need to do different next time.
Actually, I'm not riled up at all, and I'm not trying to rile you up. I'm simply asking you a question. You're the one who's getting riled up on your own. I'm just now don't interrupt me. I'm not done. You're getting ready to, and you have before. Just let me finish. And I'm not mouthing you. I'm not doing anything, but you are. We heard our marshal talk earlier about what they investigate and what they don't. They don't investigate rumor. You have to have proof of something happening. Do you have any proof to bring before all of us today on anything illegal that this lady has done with our COVID money?
I'm not saying she's done anything illegal. I'm not saying this council's done anything illegal. I'm simply sponsoring a bill that citizens are demanding to know where their money went to, and it sounds like you're denying them that. That's what it sounds like, that you want to pawn it off on me, making a threat that something's illegal. I'm saying, let's show where the money's at. That's it.
Okay, well, I'll just counter with this. Did you not hear how many times we've been audited by the feds, and that is not good enough for you? You're wanting to do a forensic.
Why are you saying me? It's not me, it's the citizen.
Again, you're interrupting me. I don't interrupt you.
I know, no, but
I wish you would just give me the same. Give me the same.
Go ahead and finish.
Then
Go ahead
don't.
and finish. Go ahead and
Then
finish.
be still. I don't interrupt you. You're wanting to have a forensic audit. Do you know what that means, a forensic audit?
Are you waiting for me? I'm giving you plenty of time.
I am, yeah. Do you know what a forensic audit is?
I know what a forensic audit is.
And do you think from what you have no proof. You're just representing, you say you're representing the people, but the people I talk to don't have the same idea of what you're doing. I mean, no, they don't agree with what you're doing, the people I've talked to. I mean, the fact that we do what we do to check our money is not good enough. And I don't care how you want to spin it, you are authoring it. And I'm not attacking you.
I didn't author it, I sponsored it.
Well, you sponsored it, and your sister wrote it. So, I'm simply asking you questions. You said you would try to answer questions. I'm asking you questions. I can't help it if you don't like them.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Audits are checks and balances. Whether or not we start off with $1 million grant, do we spin it all out? Do we owe any left over the grant, or do we have left over? That's an audit. Now, what those purchases were are what citizens are wanting to know. They felt they were treated unjust. Now, I'm doing my job as a council member because I've had plenty of calls, even from your district. Even your district citizens have signed that petition.
Well, and I've had calls from your district too, Councilman.
Good.
And that's the good thing about what we do is we help each
Right.
other out.
And
But
that's
in
why I
this,
brought this
but in
forward.
this instance, there's nothing to say that has been anything done wrong, and that's what this whole thing sounds like it's doing.
Well,
It's asking, it's actually insinuating that something has been done wrong.
Those who have nothing to hide, hide nothing.
Absolutely.
So
And
then
you've
disclose
heard-
to us where the money was
Well,
spent.
I'll finish with this, because arguing with you, to me, I will give you my opinion on what you're doing here in just a second, okay? But here's the deal. You want a line-by-line audit, she has told you, you can come to her office, you can look at it line by line. If I was gonna do this, if I was you, that's the first thing I would have done. I would have went and asked her personally about looking at the line-by-line audits, then I probably would have went and talked to the chief. I mean, that's how I would do business. But when we don't talk to anybody, if we don't talk to that head person who is over that, why would we not do that? That would be the first thing you should do. And then if they refuse, then you say, you know what? I went and asked, they refused to do it. She's offering, you're just not doing it. And here's where I will finish, and you can say whatever you want to. It's hard for me to even sit here and listen to, rumors that go around about people getting big checks and things like this. And I've heard them in my district too. And I've heard of, hey, I've had to go in other people's district and deliver water because they wouldn't. And that's ridiculous. I hear these things, it's election year, I hear this propaganda, and it's a bunch of bull. Absolute bull. And I've listened to it now ever since, all these elections started. This is no different than what I'm hearing in the public, and it's not the public that's doing it.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay,
I think-
whoa, I had a comment back to it. He said he was gonna say, and he was gonna let me finish.
Go ahead.
Okay? This is not what I'm asking for. I'm coming here and I'm taking a tax from you because I'm representing people. And I'll harness that. If you want to tag me, I'll be that guy. You can tag me all day long. I'm here to represent what citizens are asking. They just want full disclosure on where the money went. If we cannot give that to them, then it appears we could be hiding something. I want to avoid that. If I go to the treasurer's office and look with my own eyes, I'm not the citizens. They wanted to be able to recognize where those money went to. And you don't want that. So I appreciate that, but that's the reason why I brought this forward, is because they kept asking for it.
All right, one more.
They kept
If
getting
he's-
phone calls.
Okay, this is it.
Until I asked for it.
Call for the vote, call for the vote.
No.
Individuals, I like to have.
If he wants to keep arguing, then we can
no,
argue all you want.
you know,
But this is
here's
just
the
trying to
deal.
be a
You're-
simple
now you're
conversation.
attacking
Okay,
me
stop.
because
I'm
you
not
don't
attacking
want-
you.
You don't want.
No.
You don't want to listen, you don't
No,
want to
you
answer my
don't, you keep wanting to
questions.
put it on me instead of try to put it on your own citizens in your own district that you want to vote for.
Point of order.
That's what it comes
We
down to.
Hey, we have other counselors wanting to talk. There's 17 of us here, and everybody is going to get their opportunity.
This guy, he's something else. I tell you what, he is not respectful.
Counselor Deere, did you have something to add?
Wow.
Okay, well, I have Counselor Crittenden
No.
in line, and I have Counselor Austin in line, and then Harley. So, Counselor Crittenden, take it away.
Well, what I hate about this is not an audit. Audits are good, and sounds like we have a lot of them done and a lot of them scheduled, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, what I hate about this, though, is it's been spun out by somebody on social media that if we were to vote no on this, we're against transparency. And that is totally false. I'm for transparency as much as the next guy. And on the council stuff, and I mean this in a good way. Just the lady that didn't think she got enough money, from Human Services or someone. That, just like Councilor Shambaugh said, they called me and said, "Hey, Sean, I got this, but I had this need." Man, if it's legitimate, more times than not, I'll call Todd or Jennifer, Trey Lena, might even call the chiefs. Hey, we got a situation here. They had a sick kid and out of state. That's one I had. And what can be done here? And they'll try. And I don't mean this smart alecky or anything, but man, Adair County, they know my number. They know Canaan's number. And if they don't know to call me by now, kind of like it wasn't Michael Bolton, it was somebody else, but if they don't know it by now, they'll never know it. But I appreciate this, but I'm a no today because it's not necessary, and I respect everybody here, everybody's chairs, and I've been here since 2015. I look back, and the times that I'm really proud of myself since 2015 is when I come here, raised a little cane, and I was really fighting for something, fighting for a service, fighting for individuals, and that's when I'm proudest of myself, fighting for the services, this, that, and I did a lot of this too. What I'm not proud of a lot is, sometimes I was a rear end just to be a rear end. And I look back and think, man, you could have done that better, Sean. I don't regret any fights I ever had, anything I ever did here, but when I look back, I treasure those that, by golly, let's go get some more service. Let's go help some people. So, but I just, I can't, it seems month after month that it's just a jab at the administration, no pun intended. Just month after month after month after month. And every chief you can name has done great things. Every chief's done things that I would have done a little bit different probably. But this chief is doing great things. There's some things I might have done a little bit differently. But man, sometime we got to appreciate the good. And I'm not trying to tell anybody how to do their job or anything, but this thing here again, it upsets me that my no vote, and it's really a capital N, no, because it's just simply not needed. And if there comes a time when I feel like something's handled wrong, I'll go to treasurer, go to chief, go to deputy, whoever I need to go to, and by golly, I can raise heck with the best of them. But a no vote meaning you don't want transparency is kind of what hacks me off the most.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, thank you for your time.
Councilor Austin, you've been very patient.
Well, the way I see it, this proposed legislation is presented in a way that is disingenuous. I agree with Sean that the premise of the vote being you either support this bill or you do not support transparency is false. I don't accept this as our only options. We have a standing audit process that it's already underway. Every year, the audit is presented to us. We have opportunity to give the audit all the scrutiny we wish. The CARES Act proceeds were granted to the Cherokee Nation for very specific purposes. Through a vigorous process, we must satisfy the federal government that all funds were used as intended. To add another audit would cost Cherokee people a large amount of money that could be better spent serving the Cherokee people. This legislation appears to be an attempt to politicize what should be celebrated. We had an unprecedented opportunity to offer financial assistance to our people in this most trying year. We also were able to invest in our communities in ways that brought both immediate relief and long-term value. At this time, our efforts should focus on helping our citizens get vaccinated, helping make sure our people have food on their tables, helping make sure our kids can go to school in the safest way possible, making sure our employees have the support they need to do their job to serve the Cherokee people. In recent months, members of this council have been accused with much drama of pay-for-play appointments with no proof. Also, there has been an attempt to have confidential information released on every citizen who received assistance with CARES Act funds to potentially be used for political purposes. And of course, when our Supreme Court honored our treaty obligation to all of our citizens, there was an ineffective and dramatic effort made to claim we were in a constitutional crisis. Today, we again find ourselves dealing with another episode of this political theater. Some claim the people are demanding this. I, for one, can say not a single constituent has asked me to support this legislation. The silent majority tells me the Cherokee people would rather spend our legislative efforts and our funds on things more important. With this being said, I move to table this indefinitely.
Second.
Speaker Byrd, I'm going to defer to you.
You haven't, I don't think you've given everybody a chance to speak before the table.
While I'm thinking about it, Counselor Coates, I believe you are on the line, and I want to be sure you have a chance to enter in.
Yeah, I'm on the meeting still. I don't really have any questions about anything. I think it's a process of Robert's Rules of Order to understand that table indefinitely does allow further discussion. So just keep that in mind. I think, maybe just calling the question is the more expedient thing to do at this point.
Okay.
That's my only comment.
Okay. Does table indefinitely stop discussion? I'm sorry, I didn't, okay. Harley, did you want to call for the question?
No, it does not.
Okay, thank you, Julia.
Well, we all talk about transparency there, and I think transparency is good. If we could find a way that, and I know the citizens want to know, and I can see the graphs out there, but I'll guarantee you 70% of the citizens cannot read the graph and tell you what money was spent for. If there was some way that we could make a report out to the people that the people could understand, I think that would satisfy a lot of our citizens out there, because there are some questions out there, and I can't answer them, and I can't look at the report that Trelina puts out and answer them either, because I don't know. If there was some way that we could put a report out there where the common everyday citizens could understand it, I think that would eliminate a lot of questions. But other than that, I'm ready to call for the question, because, we've discussed this long enough, and just like to have an individual vote,
Okay. This will be included in the PAFR, correct? The popular annual financial report that's put out for the citizens? It'll be in there. Okay. So I am going to go ahead and call for the question.
Just one comment. Some good questions are brought up, and I respect Council No Fire's constituents, making this request, and he's bringing it to the table. And, Councilor Buzzard seconded it. As a speaker, I've watched many, many budgets come through the Cherokee Nation Council. And, when we had our former treasurer, we had, I think, 8 years of perfect audits. And some of you were part of receiving that. And, you know, and we've continued that with this treasure here. And Council No Far has legitimate comments there, and I do respect that. As a speaker and been on the council for many years, I would ask for what he's asking for if I had a majority of the council come to me. There's 17 council members. If I had a majority of you coming to me and say, Speaker, I have concerns about how we spent our COVID relief funds, then I would go back and say, hey, we have an issue here. We have a problem here. But I haven't received that majority. I've only received maybe one, maybe two. And to me, that doesn't warrant an investigation because we have audits that are almost complete here. March 31st?
It will be complete by
March
March
31st, we'll have our first. As this thing plays out and we see how it does its due diligence, we will see as our treasurer explains and our finance guy, if you ever have a financial question, go ask Jody Reese. He's one of the very few qualified people actually in the whole tribe that can answer financial questions. He's a CPA. How many CPAs do we have at Cherokee Nation, Traylon?
If you're including council members, 3.
Three. Council members. You have one of the most qualified right here in the next room here. Utilize him. When I have a financial questions, I just call Jody Reese. Okay? And that's how you'll get through some of this. I know our constituents are wanting to do this and claim this, and I respect that. But it does not warrant an investigation. What it does warrant is for us to do our due diligence, and let's see how these audits that are already in place, let us see how those work out first before we start pointing fingers. I think what it did do, what this opened my eyes to is that we probably lack communication more than we did anything else in this whole process. Because this is the first time we have gone through such an extreme pandemic issue there. Okay, we had these funds from the federal government come in. I thought we did a really good job when I saw thousands of people getting food in these various communities there and giving them water and taking care of their basic essential needs. I thought the tribe really stepped up. We saved lives through all of this, people. You have to look at the good things that we did as a tribe. Your glass has to be half full if you're going to serve on the council. Okay, if you're going to be half empty, then you're going to have a long day. Okay? Because right now the majority says we're doing good things. That's what I'm hearing. So with that, Madam Chair, I can't support this at this time. So,
Okay,
don't.
so all those in favor of this resolution? Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
I will table, I will pull the motion to table.
Okay, so we're just voting down the resolution is all. Okay, that being said, I need a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? We are adjourned.